Hi, and welcome to Advanced Media's special podcast series introducing the key themes of CINETomorrow, 2024's community event serving as an intersection of digital cinema, virtual production, and sustainability in media and entertainment. I am Razan Takash, filmmaker and head of the film department at SAE Dubai, and today I am here with Simon Battensby, a London-based gaffer making waves in the realms of film, drama, TV commercials, music videos, and documentaries. Simon spent over 2 decades as an advertising photographer in London before diving headfirst into the dynamic world of moving images. As a gaffer, Simon has left his mark on over 50 movies and countless commercials. Join us as we hear insights from his extensive experience in the world of lighting for film, drama, and virtual production. Hi, Simon. Thank you for joining us.
Good afternoon.
Let's dive straight into it. I really enjoyed looking at your workshops the last 3 days. And why is lighting such a big deal for drama specifically, especially in this age of streaming?
Well, I think streaming has had a gigantic effect on the industry as a whole because there's now so much content just pumping out 24/7. Back in the day, people probably went to the cinema once a month, something like that, or for a date or something with your girlfriend, that kind of thing. Now people are watching probably 1 or 2 or maybe more films a week. So the audience has become hugely educated in the aesthetics of film, and so it's really important to be able to raise your game and actually produce really good looking imagery to keep people watching. So that's what it's all about, really.
Yeah, we've become a lot more sophisticated now,
Absolutely.
Everybody's a critic.
That too.
Yeah, back in the day, a lot of films, especially when you look at 80s, a lot of films used to get away with a lot lower quality, and now it's very highbrow.
Yeah, it always amuses me because I used to watch Columbo, the old detective thing back in the day, and he had a beat up car which was in a lot of scenes.
Yeah.
And filmed in LA, fair enough, bright sunshine. But they always had those gigantic lights blasting onto him, and every time he opened his car door, you had this huge highlight would go down the whole length of the car and down the door. And I used to wince when I saw that because it's so obviously lit. Whereas now you wouldn't get away with that. You'd work out some other way of lighting it, so it's much more subtle.
Yeah, I noticed something like that also on a recent rewatch of Back to the Future. I think it was Back to the Future 3. There's this because they're in a Western environment. And you get these, and even back old Western films, you get these, they're wearing hats, they're wearing the cowboy hats, and then their faces are lit with some sort of yellow thing. I don't know. I think it's those big sun lights that they used to use back in the day. And I see it now. I never used to see it when I was a kid,
Just shows how we've become more visually aware. I mean, you're absolutely right.
Why do you think that is? Why have we become so more aware of light specifically?
Well, I guess with the way that cameras, the sensors have improved hugely, and now they're much more able to work with low lights and stuff. We tend to light much more naturalistically now. So the days of huge hot lights are pretty much gone, and LEDs have been wonderful for that transition. So now we can light in a much more natural way, and put tiny little lights here and there on the set, but generally let the ambience of the set be as it would be in reality. So I guess that's why you spot those horrible colours and stuff which shouldn't be there now, which you maybe didn't used to.
Do you think it's also a budget thing, like you're saying? Because now, budgets have changed in the age of streaming. People are trying to shoot more efficiently. Do you think that has something maybe to do with it?
Possibly, yeah. I mean, budgets. There's never enough time and there's never enough money. No matter what project you're on, whatever size it is, you always want more of both. So, you've got to pick your battles, really, I guess. And, if you can embrace the reality of the scene to a certain extent. So say you're in an apartment and the sun's coming in, unless the scene demands something different, that tends to be my sort of start position. I'll say, well, okay, if we've got this environment, we'll obviously finesse it and then try and improve it. But there's no point in pushing water uphill. If the sun's coming in that way, you either got to make a decision to embrace that, or you could say, actually, let's wait till the afternoon when the sun's not coming in that window, and then we'll have constant light, which means we can do multiple takes without the sun moving. So it's simple things like that, really, to just...
Yeah, definitely. But you also have to make choices for efficiency, right? Especially now with, like we're saying, the lower budgets, shooting much faster. How can you nail lighting for drama and do it really well, and shoot fast and efficiently?
I think plan, and plan. Those are pretty much that's the secret. I mean, my way of working is that I'll obviously read through the script, and then we'll get the schedules of the scene breakdowns, and then we'll know what scenes are being shot on what days. So to save money, we'll not necessarily have the whole lighting package there the whole time. We'll say, well, on the first week we need the big lights. The second week we're doing night stuff, so we'll probably need big lights as well. But you know what I mean. You finesse according to what's on the schedule, and really that's probably one of the key things to being more efficient. Another really simple thing which people forget about is to actually get the lights out of the van. It's surprising. I've worked with people and they sort of would say, okay, we need this, and this, and they'll get those on set. That's fine. And then the director or DOP will say, oh, can we have this? And it's like, oh yeah, it's in the van. And someone has to rush back to the van, which is 3 minutes, get the thing off the rack, run back to the set another 3 minutes, set it up 2 minutes. So the crew have been sitting there waiting for like 8 minutes, if my maths is right, for this one light to appear. So now I tend to have stage lights just off set, ready to go, quite often with a V-Lock battery, because it's LED nowadays, a lot of it. And you can clap on a couple of V-Locks and, you can have that set on, that light set up in 30 seconds or a minute. And that's a simple efficiency gain. Just take the lights out of the van.
Yeah, that might be a struggle though when you're shooting on location, because sometimes there's no space, sometimes they have to stay in trucks.
Yes,
so that's a struggle.
It is a struggle, especially in London where I do a lot of work.
It's small spaces.
It's really hard to get parking. Small spaces, smaller vans. We don't have the huge trucks that you have necessarily.
Yeah.
What they have in the States. So yeah, it's an issue, but that would be my thing. So get there an hour earlier and get all the lights out.
Interesting. That's such a cool tip. Get the lights out the truck. Keep them in the elevator. When working with directors, they usually have very specific vision and things that they want to achieve. But, coming in, cinematographers, gaffers, you also have your own, touch and your own experience. How do you tackle that challenge of, bringing in your own personal touch or your own experience versus maintaining the director's vision?
Well, the director's vision is primarily communicated to the DOP or the cinematographer. It's the same job. England uses DPs, America uses cinematographers. They will have lots of discussions. I mean, literally, dozens of meetings beforehand. They'll put together a lookbook. They'll talk about, influences and so on and so forth. So there's a huge amount of stuff that happens well before I typically get taken on board the project. Although I do like to get involved as early as I can, and my DPs that I really like working with, I've got a sort of little roster of guys who I work with a lot. They know that I like that, and so they get me on early, and I won't necessarily talk at those meetings, but I'll be there listening, taking notes, and that helps a great deal further down the line. And then, once the director and DOP are sort of in alignment with what they want to achieve, then I'll sort of pipe up with my ideas of how the best way to get that is, and so we'll kind of work as a team to basically put the director's vision across.
Have you ever had any struggles or challenges on set where the director wanted something a certain way, but the lighting wouldn't work that way, and you had to come up with some sort of creative solution for it?
Not only every day, really.
It's always a challenge.
No, I've been quite lucky actually. I haven't worked with any real divas, so that's a good news. But I believe there are some out there, which I'm looking forward to meeting.
You've dodged that bullet so far. That's good.
Yeah, I'm good at dodging. Creative challenges. I mean, not if you plan. You should normally be pretty on the case with it. I mean, the other thing, a good tip actually, is to make the first assistant director your friend.
Yes.
Because they're in charge, for people who don't know, they're in charge of scheduling the day, really. So they'll say, right, we start in the kitchen, then we move to the bathroom, then we shoot the living room, so they're in charge of that kind of, they're like the circus ringmaster.
Yeah, they're the managers.
Exactly.
Managers, really.
And, again, it can be a simple thing like, well, it'd be really nice to get sunshine coming into the kitchen, so can we shoot that, in the morning, if it happens to be on that side of the house? Or equally, it might be a complete pain because we don't want sunlight. It's supposed to be a rainy day, but it's sunny. So I'll say, well, can we switch around the order of shooting so that we shoot in that kitchen in the afternoon when the sun's on the other side of the house and it's dull light coming into the kitchen, which would match with a dull rainy day.
Yeah.
So there's little things like that. So making the first AD your friend is a useful technique. And obviously, continuity of lights is a huge part of it. And in the northern hemisphere, obviously north light, the sun never comes from the north. You know, there's a reason why all these beautiful Victorian painters' studios had north-facing windows, because only north light would come in. So they could sit and paint a portrait for 5-6 hours, and the light wouldn't essentially change very much, because before we had lights, you know, that's how they used to do it.
When you used to, you know, rely on the sun.
Exactly, on natural light, yeah. So north light is very steady and constant in the northern hemisphere. Flip it, in the southern hemisphere, you want south-facing windows if you want lighting continuity. I mean, I love sunlight, and if we can embrace it, we do. But, you know, the problem with the sun is it moves, and it moves blooming fast, actually. It's surprising. Something like...
Especially here.
Yes,
here, it's crazy for us.
Well, I've noticed your sunsets are like, you know, 10 minutes.
We don't have golden hours, like more like golden 15.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's quite interesting. And I was actually shooting in Sweden, and they did have golden hour, and it was like, you know, I don't know, at least an hour.
Wow.
And in midsummer, high summer, it can be like an hour and a half. It's fantastic, yeah. And then it goes dark for a few hours, and then you get another golden hour in the morning, as it were, which also lasts, you know, 1.5 hours. So they're really lucky with that.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I feel like in drama, and this is my impression, that in drama, you know, the tendency is to go more with, not go with natural light, go with, you know, light that you can control, especially for dramatic effect and for the story and for creativity. Yeah.
I mean, all that I've just said mainly applies to lower budget films where, you know, you haven't got the budget to, you know, say you're doing a gigantic ballroom or something like that, and you want to, you know, do a candlelight scene there. You know, you may not have the budget to cover, you know, 20, 50-foot high windows with black. So a simple choice like, you know, saying, okay, well, can we shoot this at night and use candles is a real time saver and money saver. So there's that side of it. But when we do have the budget and stuff, we do tend to get rid of the available light and use our own lights, which you know will be constant. Because also the higher the budget films, the more time they spend on each scene finessing it.
Yeah. And
you know, on a low budget, you might be doing, I don't know, 4 or 5 scenes a day quite easily. On higher end stuff, you might do 1 scene or possibly 2, but they will just finesse it, and the actors will go again and again and again and again till the director has what he wants. And in that situation, you need your lighting to be constant. So they might take, you know, the first sentence from the first take and the second sentence from the 14th take or whatever it is, and the lighting's got to match. So that's why we tend to go with light that we can control. And so, you know, we'll put a false sun outside the window if we want that to be in one place. So, yeah, that's that kind of background to that.
Interesting. I mean, you know, windows, day to night transitions, practical lamp choice. It sounds like a lot. It's a lot to take in, especially if you're maybe still starting out, you don't have enough experience under your belt. Any tips or suggestions or advice you can give for people to tackle these kinds of setups?
Yeah, I mean, work with good gaffers when you're a spark and try and watch and learn from them. And always try and think, how would I do this before he does it? Because often, I remember this from my photography days. I used to work for a guy and I was the assistant, and I, you know, didn't really learn anything for 2 years because I just watched what he did, and he made it look so simple. You just put the lights down and the shot looked great. And I remember one time we were working through lunch and he said, look, Simon, go and set up the lights for this. It was shooting peanut butter or something really dull, you know. So yogurt pots, that's what it was, yogurt pots.
Yeah.
So I put these pots up and I lit it and I thought, okay, it doesn't look very good. And I did it again, it doesn't look very good. And after about half an hour, I took a picture and showed it to the boss, and he went, yeah, it doesn't look very good, does it? And at that point, I realized I'd just been like a passenger on that journey. I hadn't been in the driving seat. And from that day forward, I thought, right, I'm going to now, every time there's a new thing we're shooting, I'm going to think about how would I light it, and then I will compare it to how he lights it. And that way, I suddenly learned heaps in a very short space of time, because I was actually questioning all the decisions along the way rather than just reacting to what was being put in front of me. So that's a top tip for youngsters, to try and think about how you do it before you're shown how to do it. What was the question? Practical lamp choices.
Yeah. I mean, like, there's specific things that are quite challenging for young gaffers, like windows, for example. Help. How do we deal with windows?
Windows, yeah, well, I would hark back to my thing about using north light, or if it's southern hemisphere, using southern light. So try and work on the side of the building that's not blasted with sun. Because also, when you're starting out, you're going to be on lower budget things, and you may not be able to afford really strong, powerful lights to fight the sun.
Yeah.
So it makes more sense to make the sun your friend, and wait till he's walked away.
So far, we've made two friends: the first AD and the sun.
Yes, exactly.
There's a lot of friends on your side.
Absolutely.
Yeah. What about transitions? Like transitioning day to night, things like that. They tend to be a little challenging.
Yeah, they are challenging. To be honest, unless it's a specific sort of special effects shot, I don't get asked to do that very much. It's either one or the other. It's kind of, because you're almost like you're saying, it's like a time lapse effect. If you want to do that, which probably you would have lights on some sort of moving track, so you could track the sun kind of moving through the sky, and the shadows would change along the floor.
Yeah.
Probably something like a technocrane would be a simple way of doing that. So you just put your light on the end of that and just track it back, and you can control the speed and direction. It's all in the computer's memory. But I mean, that's a lot of money. So I don't think you're going to get asked to do that so much at the beginning. What you do sometimes get asked to do, and that's quite normal, is maybe a girl's asleep in her bedroom, and there's a bit of blue moonlight coming into the window or something like that, and then her phone goes off and she jumps out and turns on the bedside light. That's a typical one. You get quite a bit, and I would always like that, such that the daylight, the lamp light, is about 2 stops brighter than the moonlight, because in reality that's how it is. You don't see moonlight if you've got any room lights on. It's just too weak.
Yeah.
So set it up so that you're exposed for the when the room lights come on, and then set your moonlight to be about 2 stops less than that. You'll still be able to read it, especially if she's got white sheets and dark hair or whatever. You'll see what's going on, but that's what I would suggest. Yeah,
that's interesting that you mentioned the lamplight, because practical lamps and practical lighting is also, I feel, can be a friend to the gaffer.
Yeah.
How do you make choices in terms of the practical lamps in scenes, especially when it comes to drama?
Well, I mean, putting aside the fact that if it's got to be period specific, then the production designer, who is another friend, you have to make
lots of friends.
Yep. Production designers have a gigantic effect on the film, really huge, and they're really important. So they'll typically go out, say it's a Victorian drama, they'll go out and source the kind of lamps that they would have had at the turn of the century. And so one good tip, actually, is if you are lighting with a few of these lamps in the background, I'm talking about lamps and lampshades, a certain colour, get them to buy an extra one or two, because then you can always bring those in on a long cable and use them as a fill light in the foreground. So they'll be out of shot, but the colour of that lamp and its lampshade will exactly match the colour of the 2 lamps in the background. And so you've got a quick fill that's going to be sort of accurate. So that's a useful tip. A lot of the times we use these LED bulbs now inside the lampshade, so we can control them wirelessly, and you can have any colour you want, which is kind of useful. There's still a lot to be said for good old-fashioned tungsten, actually, with a dimmer. I mean, it's a lovely light. It's the fullest spectrum we have. Despite the advances in HMIs and LEDs, tungsten is still the best spectrum, because it's all the wavelengths, all at once. But obviously, you've got to set your camera to be the right color temperature to reflect that.
Yeah, cool. I mean, speaking of advancement, virtual productions are now becoming a big thing a lot. How does lighting play a role in these productions? How do you adjust for that type of shooting?
I think, virtual production is going to have a major impact. It's just starting to now, especially on the bigger budget stuff, but it is getting cheaper all the time, and that's going to be a huge change in the next 20 years. Lighting it really... Well, the most obvious basic thing is don't light anything towards the LED wall, because you might get reflections, and also you'll tend to desaturate the blacks and the colours in that LED wall. So always kind of side light it. I suppose the one proviso of that is you could actually light towards the wall if you're on a really big stage and you can get a long way back, so the lights fall off won't actually affect the back wall. So yeah, there is that. But typically you tend to work on smaller stages because the LED walls themselves are very expensive. So yeah, I would say light from the sides, light from behind, and use a lot of flags and egg crates and so forth on the lights, so that you don't get spilled onto that back wall, because you want to keep that as saturated and rich blacks as you can.
What about in terms of equipment? What kind of choices do you make when you're working with a virtual background versus when you were working regular set?
Well, there's two ways to that. You can use just regular lights on the set like you normally would. The one thing people do think, they can walk onto a virtual production set and just let the background wall light the actors and the world. That is not going to work. Okay. And I think that's kind of recognised now that you do need lights as well. So yeah, don't sack the gaffer just yet.
No, not yet.
You're going to need someone.
Still around.
So yeah, so you can use conventional lights, LEDs or whatever on the set. But the other thing that's coming in now is IBL, which is image-based lighting, which is a whole new level whereby you take the footage that's playing on the wall in the background, you then pixel map it, send it through a media server to your lights, typically an array of tube lights, something like quasar science rainbows or Kino mimics, something like that. You send that pixel map to those lights, and those lights will suddenly sort of pixelate themselves, and they will show a sort of a blocky image, if you like, of the pixels of the background on the light. So the lights will move in sync with the changing imagery on the LED wall. So your actors' faces will be lit in real time by the light that's displaying on the back wall. So that's an interesting thing. It's quite a complex area, believe me. It's quite
technical.
It's very technical. I've been digging into it, and there's a lot of virtual studios turning up now, and they're very keen to talk to you. I've been around a few because I thought this is something I need to learn about.
Yeah, we have some popping up here in Abu Dhabi.
Yeah. They're very welcoming, and obviously they want you to come back because it's a big investment for them and they want to keep working. Yeah. So there's plenty of knowledge out there for free. Just go and talk to your local studio and ask, what do I need to know? But yeah, you do need good engineers, software engineers and desk operators and people like that on your side, unless you want to learn it yourself, which I'm a bit long in the tooth for that. And yeah, so IBL is an interesting thing, and it will be coming in more and more. But here's an example of why it's difficult. A quasar Rainbow 2 tube is 48 pixels. Mm-hmm. Each pixel has 5 channels. Mm-hmm. Okay, so brightness, color, intensity, hue, whatever. So 48 times 5 is about 240, I think.
I don't do math.
Yeah, 240.
I will just take your word on it.
Okay. So that's 240 DMX addresses used up. Yeah. Just on one tube.
That's
so
a lot. 2
tubes are going to use up almost entirely one universe. I don't know if sorry, technical. A DMX universe is 512 channels. Okay. So 2 tubes, you've used up one universe. And these typically have arrays of maybe 20 or 30 tubes. So suddenly you're into a huge amount of programming and networking and setting up LANs and all that malarkey, which is way beyond my pay grade. So you do need guys who've done it before and can actually talk you through what you need to do.
Interesting. What about when we think about it creatively? Is there specific lighting styles or techniques that work for virtual production, that look better, that, creatively it's nicer?
The interesting thing about VP is that it can do most things very well, but it can't really yet do hard sunlight. So if you want, I don't know, someone walking across the desert or whatever, yeah, sure, you can get the dunes in the background and all that stuff going on. That looks great. But the hard light on the actor, typically from behind, so it shines on their hair, you'll probably put a couple of lights hanging from the ceiling, just strong directional lights, HMIs or now probably LED spotlights, to backlight them, and you just try and frame them out. Occasionally there's a reason why you need to have the light really, really low in the shot, and one way around it I've never would have dreamt of, but you can do, is just to take out some panels from the wall. So you literally create a hole in your wall.
Oh, wow.
And you shine the light through that. Obviously you can't show that bit in camera.
Is that being done?
It's being done, yeah.
I was wondering, because when you're talking, I remember The Mandalorian was shot on the volume, right? And
Yes.
and it was a lot of desert and sun and harsh light and exteriors.
Yeah.
I wonder if they did that.
I'm not sure if they did on that one, because I wasn't party to that production, unfortunately. I missed the call, obviously.
But it's brought attention to the volume. That's why.
Exactly. Yeah, and that was what really kicked it off, actually, big time. What was interesting was that was shot on a fairly low grade screen, actually. Well, it was high grade at the time, but it had a pixel pitch, which is a distance between one LED pixel and the next, of 2.8, which is nowadays, any old screen is going to be 2.5, and there are actually screens with a pixel pitch of 1.5 millimeters.
Wow.
So it's really come down, But The Mandalorian still, everyone rated it and showed you what you could do.
Yeah.
Interestingly, I'd have to. This is a bit of a rumor, and I don't sue me. But I'm not sure actually they made any money on that, because I think they just basically threw money at the project to make it happen. And
they definitely made it in merchandising. Maybe they didn't make it because oh my god,
I guess that's true. Yeah.
that Baby Yoda is everywhere.
Yeah, true. Yeah. But no, I think they just wanted to prove what they could do, and so they threw money at it and kind of learnt as they went along, and it looked amazing. I was very impressed with it. It was good, but so hard sunlight is still a bit of an issue.
Yeah.
But there are ways around it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Where do you see the future of the lighting department going down the line? Where are we heading?
Well, more techie, sadly, for those people who aren't techie. I'm quite a hands-on kind of guy. I'm always sort of like building little bits and bobs in my workshop at home and stuff like that. I quite enjoy all that. And there's still a place for that, certainly. But now there's more and more sort of like programming. You've got to be good at, DMX addressing and all that malarkey. We're becoming desktop's almost, which is quite surprising. And that's a whole new learning curve, which the youngsters, bless them, are very good at all that computer malarkey. I'm struggling to stay relevant, but
make friends with youngsters.
That's the final tip, because it's a good point, actually. Yeah. I think that's where the future heads. There will always be people who want to shoot on location, because there's something about the reality of a location that you get those happy accidents on location, and there will always be a move to still do that. I think the VP virtual production thing is good for long running shows where they need to have control over a lot of different elements, like the major thing is the weather and sound. Those are the two biggest issues, because I've shot in remote forests in Scotland, and we're just about to go for a take, and then someone says, hold for the helicopter. It's like, what? Yeah. So there's some helicopters flying over. Why? Or a jet plane or something. So, having control over sound is really important, and that's why. Yeah,
we struggle here because we have a lot of airports close by, and it's a bit of a struggle.
Yeah. Well, I live halfway between Heathrow and Gatwick.
Yeah. Hold for that plane.
Yeah, so it's just constant. But that's
the future is techie.
That's the future. Yeah.
The future is techie, but we'll still be on location.
Yeah, I hope so, because I love traveling and going to new places and stuff. And if you're a gaffer who's able to do that, then it's fantastic. Get out and about and learn new things, meet new people.
And make friends.
And make lots of friends.
Thank you so much for this, Simon. This is very interesting.
Absolutely, my pleasure.
It was awesome having you. Thank you for joining us into the launch of Advanced Media's podcast with this special series coinciding with the return of CINETomorrow. Advanced Media is presenting 4 other episodes in this series. Make sure to check them out. I am Razan Takash. Thank you for tuning in.